Hatcher. It remains a very, very good FA Cup final. And Hatcher! What a magnificent goal!
Good evening and welcome to All Things Sky Blue match preview, our away game against Watford. Tonight I am on my own. I haven't got Mark. He's on holiday, so happy holiday to Mark. But I will have a Watford fan from the Yellow Square pod, Ned, that will be joining me shortly. So before he does, just remember where you can find us. It is scrolling down at the bottom. We are on X or Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. Please go and like and subscribe to anything that we do on there. It is free. Our subscribers are growing really, really well, so really pleased with that. So thank you very much. You can also listen to us as a podcast, and if you do listen to us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts from, please go and rate us 5 stars. We're sponsored this season again by Right Steel Fabrications. His logo's in the corner. He can do your steel fabrication work up and down the country, but mainly in the Coventry and Warwickshire area. We're also partnered with the Anecdote Sports Bar at the CBS Arena. And we're also partnered by Where I Am Today. I'm back. Technical issues. The last one that we did, we had technical issues, but I'm back at the Sky Blue Tavern where we normally record from. So, without further ado, let me bring in Ned from the Yellow Square podcast. How are you, Ned?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. It is
worries.
much appreciated. So, before we get into the game then and talk about the game coming up and past games, just let us know, Ned, what you guys do and where we can find you.
Oh, well, myself, Ned, and my brother James, we host an unofficial Watford podcast called the Yellow Squad podcast. We're relatively newcomers to the podcast scene. We only joined a couple of seasons ago, but we're on our 3rd season now of the podcast starting this year. So we like to break down games. We often do a podcast on for the Monday morning after the weekend game. But we're kind of transitioning now more into a show than a podcast. So we've got lots more segments this season. But we're trying to put a bit of extra effort into it just to make us seem a little bit different to the other Watford podcasts, which because there's quite a few now. So, but yeah, you can find us on all of the audio platforms: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, all those ones. We're also on Twitter or X, Instagram, and TikTok as well as YouTube. So that's where you can find us.
Fantastic. And is it the Yellow Square podcast at the Yellow Square podcast, is it?
Yeah, if you just search Yellow Square podcast, we should pop up everywhere, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Lovely. Right, so let's get into it then. The past few games, say few, I've gone past to the last 6. And I normally only go to the last 5, but I thought it was unfair because the actual 6th game was the one that you won. So I've given you a win in there anyway. We've drew 3 and we've lost 2. To be fair, they've all been very, very close. We've drew 0-0, drew, I think, 3-3, 2-2. And when everybody's won one, it has been by 1 goal. Whether that's a 1-0 win or a 2-1 win or a 3-2 or something like that. So I have literally just watched our last game, which was the 2-1 loss for you guys, 2-1 to us. Because I couldn't really remember it. Obviously, I've slept since then and I've drank since then. So time moves on. So I had to revisit it a little bit. Do you remember much of the game at all?
I'll be honest. I'm in the same boat as you. I can remember the 3-3. Not too much of the 2-1, no, but obviously a win for you. So you must have been pleased after that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was good. And like I said, I have just rewatched it. So we got done out with a little bit of a long throw, and it was a looping header over Collins at the time. And then we won a penalty. Josh Eccles managed to skip through a couple of challenges, and then the keeper brought him down, and Hadji Wright scored a penalty. And then Haji Wright scored the winner. Again, he got 2 on the day. And it was a nice, neat finish, to be fair. He scored it really, really well, took it really nicely. But Sims and Wright at that stage, I believe, were starting to come into their purple patch a little bit, and they were being a lot more threats down the wing and up front as well. And they were scoring a few more goals within that. So how is your pre-season gone? As it, because you're unbeaten in the first 4 or 5 games, including all competitions, which you must be really, really pleased about, because obviously that 2-1 victory for Coventry saw Ishmael Miller leave. Well, he was sacked, wasn't he? And then you had Tom Cleverley come in. Were you happy with Tom Cleverley coming in, and are you still happy? You must be, surely.
Yeah, obviously Watford, it's the manager merry-go-round, isn't it? We like to change managers often. We really kind of thought last season would be different under Ishmael. The club seemed to have a completely different vibe to it from the past couple of seasons. But yeah, we went into that season, everything was kind of going well, and then we hit a wall in January. It did kind of fall apart after that, and I don't particularly enjoy getting rid of managers so quickly and so frequently, but I think after that Coventry game that we'd gone on a pretty barren run. I think we'd only beaten Rotherham in 5 or 10 games before that, so it was probably the right decision. And yeah, I was happy to see Tom Cleverley come in. He'd done some great work in the academy in the season coming up to that point where he was promoted to first team manager. Obviously, bit of a club legend at Watford, so it's brilliant to see him come back in a managerial role. It was mixed, to be honest. Obviously, it's a big gamble going for somebody that's never coached professional first team football, but he's come in and hit the ground running. He really righted a sinking ship, I think, towards the end of last season. We went on a good run with him, and it's carried on into the start of this season. So yeah, I think a lot of Watford fans are really behind Tom Cleverley. Really pleased with the club's decision to keep him rather than just keep him as the temporary and then bring in a new name. But yeah, it's been good to see him get a whole summer of work with the players, and we were predicted to do terribly this season under Tom Cleverley by many a publication, and it's been nice to play some good football and already be proving some of these people wrong.
Yeah, obviously our season hasn't gone to according to plan. We were pipped to be definitely top 6 and top or even into automatics, and it hasn't gone that way. We've had another slow start from our point of view. We've only really probably had one standout league performance, really, and that was against Oxford. It was a little bit. It's been a little bit weird, this season. I'm not saying that it's an excuse or anything, but we've played Bristol City twice and we've played Oxford twice in the cup and in the league in such a short space of time as well. The game against Norwich, the performance wasn't there, and there was something. There just feels like there's something behind the scenes that isn't quite right. I think a lot of people say that as well. But it's just nice to have different teams in the mix, because it was literally Bristol City, Oxford, Bristol City. It was just it was horrible. I didn't like it at all. I just wanted to see a different name in there just to freshen things up a little bit. It did seem weird that it just worked out that way, but what can you do? Not a lot, really. How was the styles sort of differed from Ishmael to Cleverley? Is he playing a same style, but he's just getting his point across better, or is it a completely different style?
I think it's a similar style. Both managers like a back three. It's very possession based, particularly under Ishmael. It just feels like with Cleverley that he's getting more of a tune out of the midfield. It seems like players like Tom Delibashiru are happy to come and collect the ball and move it on. Carrying the ball is a real quality in our midfield. It just feels like he's getting much more of a tune out of them compared to Ishmael. We were very wasteful with possession under Ishmael. It did just seem at times like the ball was going very side to side with no forward passes. But at the moment, it seems to be working well under Cleverley. A lot more direct passes through the middle rather than just going long constantly. But yeah, as far as answering the question goes, he just seems to be getting much more of a tune out of the players.
Yeah, obviously, the transfer window's closed now, so only I think free agents can come in. I believe that we're still in the market for a couple of players. Whether anything happens or not over the next few weeks, anybody's guess really. Just because we've had Sheaf out, and he has been a big miss for us. Yeah. He's meant to be back for the Watford game. Haven't heard any reports, anything different, but you never know nowadays because, for some reason, Coventry keep everything so close to the chest. We won't know until Bobbins comes out and does his press conference. Probably Friday, I would imagine, at some point, Thursday, Friday. And he'll be asked the question and then we'll find out then. Because there is some reports that he's going to be out still anyway for another 3 or 4 weeks or maybe even more. So we don't know. But obviously you've had a lot of ins and outs.
Yeah.
I believe you had 13 come in and you've had 16 go out. So you've trimmed the squad a little bit and you've got money for a lot of your players as well. So, the bank balance is looking a little bit nicer for you guys as well. Just a few of the ins that I want to talk about and a few of the outs as well. So in you've had Sissoko.
Yeah.
You've had Agbona.
Yeah.
You've had Daniel Jebison and you've had Feisty Alabosi. I can never pronounce his name. I remember Feisty because when he played for Derby, he was up against Darbo. Now, at the time, Darbo was probably at one of his best seasons for us. And Feisty came along, played against Derby, and he absolutely tore him a new one. And he was amazing. So you must be thrilled to get them in. Obviously, Daniel Jebison on loan from Bournemouth. So you've got some quality players that have come in. Are you happy with the players? Is there any that sort of maybe stand out to you in terms of the ones that have come in?
I think managing to get Sissoko back was quite a surprise for a lot of people. I know it was rumoured for a long time that his family wanted to move back to London. They weren't particularly happy in France when he joined Nantes from us. But yeah, it's a big shock to have that pull to get him back, particularly in the Championship. He's never played in the Championship before. And you can't complain at getting a World Cup winner back into the squad. So he's definitely been a standout. Just his ability still, he's absolutely quality. Still has the legs in him, which was under question from a lot of people. And it's just that experience. Obviously, last season we had Livermore in the midfield. He joined, and it was very much he would play, and then you'd have Kone and Kayembe in front of him, and he was the base of the midfield. All that experience, and it seems like we've managed to get a replacement for that in Sissoko, but he just has more legs than Livermore and obviously a bit better technical ability. As for the other ones, Ogbonna, he hasn't played for us yet, so it'll be interesting to see if he features. Neither has Abasele, so it'll be interesting to see if he features against Coventry. But they've had the international break now to train and get up to speed. But Ogbonna is another really good signing. I feel great experience at the back, and yeah, he's been a quality defender for a number of years now. So it's always good to have more experience at the back. It kind of rings Marco Cassetti joining Watford in sort of 2013, and that sort of similar amount of experience. So that's another great addition. And as for Jebison, he's kind of an unknown for a lot of Watford fans. Obviously, was at Sheffield United, didn't really do a lot, and then obviously ran down his contract and went to Bournemouth. They seem to be very happy with him. He came on against Sheffield United last week or the week before, sorry, and it looked as though he didn't really know the system. But it's another good signing in my opinion. So hopefully by now he'll be up to speed and hopefully rattling the goals in.
Hopefully not this weekend. Hopefully he'll save it. Obviously, you mentioned KMB, and obviously he's your top goal scorer. I know we've only played 4 games in the league, but he scored 3 goals. So, with Sissoko coming in, has that allowed him to push up forward a little bit more?
Yeah, obviously we've moved to that 5 at the back, and it's kind of allowed us to have 2 holding midfielders in Sissoko and Dele Bashiru, and then allowed players like Chatvatadze and Kayembe to push on a bit forward. Maybe they're kind of both playing the number 10 role, but yeah, it's definitely allowed Kayembe to flourish. We kind of always saw him in the past couple of seasons as a very robust centre mid who loves the challenge, can carry the ball far, but he's absolutely flourished in this more forward position, and he's got a great strike on him. So it's definitely paid off for Cleverley having him up there. Yeah.
Fantastic. And obviously you have lost a few as well. Like I said, you've lost 16 players, but the ones that sort of spring out more to me is you've lost Bayo, Ben Hamer, Kone, and obviously Asprilla. I like the look of Asprilla a lot, And are you gutted? Do you think the squad is now better because they've left, or do you think you're going to miss them?
I think in terms of Kone and Asprilla especially, they have such high ceilings. I think we all expected them to move on. We couldn't keep them at Watford as a mid to lower table championship team. They will go on to have excellent careers. Obviously, it's a big miss, but we all anticipated that they would be moving this summer. But yeah, Asprilla particularly, he was something else at times. Hopefully, he goes on to flourish for Girona. But yeah, I think Kone and Asprilla are definitely the big misses. Hamer came in, toppled Bachmann as number 1 for a few weeks, but then when Cleverley came in, Bachmann was put back in the goal. So it was kind of a bit. We didn't know whether Hamer would stay, but obviously he decided to leave and go to Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah, definitely. So, sort of looking at this, looking at the game on Saturday, where do you think the game is going to be sort of won and lost for you? Is it a midfield battle or is it defence? How do you see it going?
It's a tough one to weigh up, really. It has felt like in the wins that we've had this season, particularly in the league, obviously the Carabao Cup, we've come up against teams that we should really be beating. But in terms of the league, I think it's just individual battles all over the pitch that'll win the game for us, especially when the teams are relatively matched. I think you've got a bit more quality than us. But I think if we, especially that midfield 4 has been crucial to the wins we've had this season. And I think if they can win their individual battles, I think that's where the game will be won.
Yeah, you say individual battles, and I would like to say I agree with you, but unfortunately, the games that we've played in the past, that's what we've lacked. When the first game of the season against Stoke, didn't win individual battles. The only game that we won our individual battles on was against Oxford. Yeah. And we beat them 3-2. There were 2 stupid goals that we gave away, especially the second one, because he was nearly the player was nearly headbutting the floor and it went through to a player and it just hit him and went in. Yeah. It was just, they're the type of goals that we're giving in. So, excuse me. Yes, we didn't want the international break necessarily to come because we needed to rectify what was happening.
Yeah.
But maybe it was a good thing because it just gives us, 2 weeks to sort of get things together, just get our act together. Just the players look at themselves a little bit, in the mirror and
Yeah.
just start winning them individual battles. Because I think if we do that, and we can't rely on Ben Sheaf. We can't rely on that one player. Yes, he's a brilliant player for us, and when he's in that squad or team, he does make us a lot better. But we can't rely on him all the time because sometimes he will get injured. He might get suspended. So other players have got to step up. Eccles, Torp, Radoni, and other players like that. Jamie Allen, if he comes back in, Haji Wright's got to step up. Sims has got to step up. It's just at the minute, it's kind of difficult. And unfortunately, I don't know whether it's going to be a hindrance, but obviously the Wednesday after, we've got a really tough, League Cup game in Tottenham coming to the ground. It's a big spectacle. I don't know whether that's going to be playing on their minds a little bit as well. I hope not. I hope their focus is fully, on that league game, because if we lose against Watford, then that puts even more pressure on Robins, and the crowd are going to be feeling it. Robins is going to be feeling it. The players are going to be feeling it. And it's not going to be a nice, away from home. I always stick to the rule. You draw your away games, you win your home games, and you'll be somewhere close. So I'll never back against us. But when I come to the predictions in a minute, you'll find out. Obviously, I'm not overly optimistic. Put it that way. And this game isn't necessarily about the result. It's about the performance that I want to see on the pitch, because there's a way of losing, and we haven't been losing that way. We've been losing awfully, with players not putting their whole heart into it for whatever reason. They need to snap out of it. They're not bigger than the club, and they need to get their act together, and start playing for Coventry, that we know that they can do, like everybody predicted that they were going to do, at the start of the season, and actually start putting that into practice. Because at the minute, we're 1 foot behind, and it feels like we're losing ground every game. That's my rant over, by the way, Ned. Sorry about that, mate.
That's all right.
So let me ask you then, do you see any threats from us? What are your main threats that you see from us? Have you got any questions for us at all?
I think, there's definitely two standouts for me. Obviously, we don't know if Sheaf is going to play. But just in terms of players that most likely will start and play, Haji Wright and Ellis Sims, I think they are, when they're on form, it's a handful for any championship defence. But they are, for me, the standouts that could do a lot of damage to us. Obviously, Haji Wright scored twice against us in the last game. I hope he doesn't repeat it, but they definitely pose a threat that I think more so than some other players in your team.
Okay, fair enough. Obviously, Haji Wright scored 2 for us this season anyway, and he had it, like you said, he had his best game against Oxford, who play in yellow. So hopefully, you'll be in the yellow kit, I presume. Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully he might do it again, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, them two definitely need to start producing what we know that they can produce, because they haven't at the moment. So yeah, it's one of them really. Any other questions for us?
Oh, I think I might reverse it onto you. Who do you think is a danger from Watford?
From Watford? Oh wow. Well, like I've already mentioned him, to be fair, that KMB. Like I said, he has scored 3 goals in 4 games. But look, I like Sissoko. He was a good player. And the only issue that I've got, you mentioned Agbona. Now, I do think he is a good defender, But having played FPL for a while, and obviously him being at West Ham, I never had him aside because I do always see that there is a mistake in him. So if he does start, I'm just hoping that we can pressurise him and we can get in his face a little bit. Haji Wright or Radoni or probably won't be Tats because he got injured in our last game against Norwich. So you might see Tavares there, who's a little bit more lightweight probably, but he is rapid. He is quite quick. But it might be Radoni, or he might change formations. We don't know. We've got Mason Clark, and we've got Thomas Asante as well that can play on the flank, or Haji White can go over to the right hand side and they can come in. I would prefer to see that, in all honesty, but again, it's a flick of a coin with what he does at the minute because nobody's playing particularly, like you said, nobody's playing particularly very well. So, he might change everybody because we just don't know who is going to start, really. It's a difficult and precarious position for Robbins to be in because, like I said, if he does lose, it's going to start feeling. He's going to start feeling the weight of Coventry City. Look, Robbins has been there before, and I'm not an advocate of getting managers out. Just a little bit like yourself with Valerian last season and stuff. And I don't want him to go. Because for what he's done for this club over the past 7 years has been amazing. But yeah, he is going to start feeling a lot of pressure if things don't turn around, and it's down to them players to make sure that they do start putting in performances, like I said, that we know that they can do. Because, a lot of these players were with us last season. It's not like we've had to rebuild the side. We've just added quality to us, but they've got to start showing that quality from last season and the new players that we've brought in as well. So, yeah, it's. I know I've reverted back to Coventry. No, sorry, but yeah, Daniel Jefferson. I do like him from Bournemouth. If he does start, then I think he can be a real threat for you as well. But your main one is obviously for me at the moment the one that scored. Your top goal scorer with 3 goals so far in Kasembe. So, yeah. So, do you do predictions?
I think I can do a prediction for you, of course, yeah.
Go on then, give us a prediction.
I think it will be a tight game. I know a lot of the games recently have been decided almost on a knife edge by 1 goal. I'm going to say 2-1 Watford in hope.
Okay, fair enough. In hope, more hope than So that's good. That's good. Well, like I said to you, I'll never go for a Coventry loss. It's not what I do. The worst I'll ever do is a draw. And as I said previously, I always say, draw your away games, win your home games, and you'll be somewhere close. So I am going to go for a 1-1 draw. But like I said, this game isn't about the result. It's about the performance because there's a way to lose. And as long as we try to perform and we're just beaten by the better side, that's fine. I can take that because I can see progress into the next game, and that's fine. If we lose 1-0 and we've been poor, that's what I can't take. If we get battered 5-1 and we've tried and we've had efforts at goal and things like that, it's one of them. But I think it will be a close game because I'm hoping that we will turn up, and I'd love us to win. But I just want to see a performance out the players to show that they are progressing and they are going to get better because I haven't really seen it yet. So, like I said, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. So, on that note, we're coming to the end, and I do get asked my guests to do a quick fire questions. So, there's just 4 or 5 different questions that I'll ask. This year's a bit different. I am going to make notes, and hopefully in the reverse fixture, we'll have you back on and we'll talk about the notes that I've made from the answers that you've given just now. So the first one is a player to look out for you guys.
Ooh, I'm going to say Georgi Chakvetadze.
Who?
We just call him Dave. If that's helpful, we
I'll
just
go
call him
with
Dave.
Dave. I'm happy with that. What's his name though? Georgie.
Georgie Chapvatadze, yeah.
Georgie. Where will Cov finish?
Ooh. If you pick it up, I'm gonna say 6th.
Okay. Where will Watford finish? You can give me head and heart if you want. You can give me 2 answers.
Okay, head 12th, heart 8th. I think that's fair.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Lovely. If you could take one Coventry player to Watford, who would it be?
Ooh.
You can say nobody if you feel nobody will fit in.
There are certainly a number of players. I'm gonna say it's got to be Haji Wright, hasn't it? His quality.
Well, hopefully you can. Look, I'm not. People that listen to this podcast and people that listen to our X Space will know that I'm not the biggest Haji Wright fan. On his day is amazing. Don't get me wrong. But I just feel sometimes he can be a little bit lazy on that left. I would prefer to see him and Sims battle it out for that number 9 slot, because I just think he leaves that left back a little bit more exposed, just because he cuts in a little bit and stuff like that. But against Oxford, if he plays against you guys like he did against Oxford, I'll be happy with that, because he was absolutely brilliant and he worked and he hassled and he did everything that I wanted him to do. I just haven't seen it enough this season and last. For the amount of goals that he scored last season, I still think that he could have helped out and worked harder on that left-hand side. I think the goals, glossed over some of the things that you weren't doing enough, for me anyway. I know people out there will hate me for saying it and won't agree with it. Because they want him to score goals. They don't want him to track back. Well, that's fine, but don't stick him on that left-hand side then. Play him up front or play 2 so he hasn't got to track back as much. That's my argument to it, really. But look, who am I? Robbins knows best. So in Robbins we trust. And the last one, one word for Tom Cleverley.
Legend.
So when he's sacked just before Christmas and we come back to you, I'm only joking. I hope he doesn't get sacked. I'm only joking. So thank you very much for joining me, Ned. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me.
On. If you can just let us know where we can find you again and what you guys do.
Yeah, so we are an unofficial Watford fan podcast called the Yellow Squared Podcast. We run a show weekly where we break down the games. We talk about a lot of the news that's happened in the past week from Watford. And we have a lot of segments that we like to tuck into, play a few games on the podcast that we like to get the audience involved in when we can. And you can find us on all audio platforms: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, pretty much any audio platform you use, you can find us on there. We're also on Instagram, Twitter or X, and YouTube as well. So you can find our stuff all over the place.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Once again, thank you for joining me, Ned.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Obviously, when we finish recording, don't shoot off and we'll have a quick chat afterwards.
Perfect.
Guys, just remember where you can find us. Obviously, like I said, it is scrolling down the bottom, but you can find us on X or Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. We are on YouTube as well. Please go and like and subscribe. We're sponsored by Right Steel Fabrications, and we're partnered with the Anecdote Sports Bar and the Sky Blue Tavern, where I am tonight. Once again, thank you, Ned, for joining me. Play up Sky Blues. Good luck for the rest of the season, apart from obviously our games, clearly. But yeah, good luck, mate, and speak to you soon.
Thank
Cheers,
you very
guys.
much, guys.